The Film Crickets are intended for mature audiences. Any guests on the Film Crickets do not necessarily share the same opinions as the Film Crickets. It's time for the Film Crickets with Jay Fortier, Chris Martineau, and Melanie Howerton. On this week's episode, the Crickets are joined by Francis Maxwell, a filmmaker and contributor for the Meidastouch Network. Jay, Chris, Melanie, and Francis review the 1992 American legal drama film, A Few Good Men.
What do you want to discuss now? My favorite color?
Does it stand the test of time? Let's find out. Your Film Crickets are on now.
All right. Hey, friends, and welcome to the Film Crickets. My name is Jay Fortier. I'm along with my good friend, Chris Martineau.
Hello.
Hey. And along
What's
with
up?
my good friend and co-host, Melanie Howerton.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. And once again, this is the Film Crickets, where we talk about movies from 1980 to 1999, and we do have some exceptions. We'll go into the 70s, a little bit into the 2000s, but mostly 80 to 99. But we are honored today, and we are welcoming Francis Maxwell. He is a contributor to the Meidastouch Network, and also he's a filmmaker, so we're excited to have him. Welcome, man.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Of course.
This is
So,
cool.
so we're I'm placing Francis from your accent. You're from Tennessee, Mississippi,
yeah.
Alabama.
Born in Texas, yeah.
Okay, good,
Lost my
good.
twang a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Francis, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're from? How are you a filmmaker? What are you involved in? Give us the skinny on Francis Maxwell.
All right. The bottled down version is I'm from Scotland originally, and born and raised in Glasgow, which is, as we like to know, is the heart of Scotland. Everyone says it's Edinburgh. We like to pretend that they don't say that. It's definitely the prettier city, but we're the people in Glasgow. We have the heart of our country. But I moved to America in 2010, and I've kind of jumped between Los Angeles and New York to finally land in New York City, because I feel like it's got a little bit more of the type of people, let's say, that I align with. There's a lot of Scottish, Irish, Australian. Here, a lot of Irish bars where I can watch my football. So happy to be here. As far as my career, I kind of wore many hats. I used to be a professional soccer player back in the day before I moved to America. And then I went to college and picked up journalism. That led me into kind of the political realm, which is, as you know, is a rabbit hole of itself. Mm-hmm. So I went down that for many years and started to find that the stories that I would talk about, I was always a little limited, just based on whether it was video content or written pieces. And then thought to myself, well, how else can I talk about these things in a way that is not as limited? And that led me into film. So that was more of a recent transition. That's only been the last couple of years, but always been a film buff, and to see it from that side while shooting my own film last year and going on to produce a couple of documentaries, it's only made me fall in love with it even more.
Excellent.
So yeah, that's kind of the skinny so far. Still being written. We'll see where I end up, but yeah, it's been great to live on this side of the world so far.
So in one way or another, storytelling
absolutely
is your deal.
I don't.
Yep.
Whenever I talk to anybody about journalism and film, my theory of why I enjoy it is it's the same thing. You're trying to find the truth in a story, and you're trying to tell it. So sometimes it's in different mediums.
Super. All right. So again, we were talking a little bit before off mic before we got set up. A couple of technical issues, so we usually at this point we kind of go around the horn and we talk about our history with the movie. So you selected A Few Good Men. Rob Reiner's A Few Good Men. At this point, because we're looking at movies from the past, we kind of see what your history is with the movie. Like, when was the first time you saw it? Do you watch it a lot? Do you watch it once a year? Like, does it have a soft spot for you? So basically what your relationship is with the movie until maybe your recent rewatch. So I'm going to go around the horn here. I'm going to start with Jason. Jay Fortier, what's your history with A Few Good Men?
I saw it years ago, whenever it came out, like on video, though. It was like, I rented it, I guess. And I've seen it a few times here and there throughout the years. It wasn't like a steady watch where I constantly watched it, but I've always loved it a lot from whenever I saw it. So, like, every time I saw it, I enjoyed it thoroughly, and this time included. So
cool. So no diminishing returns. You just kind of liked it from go, and then just kind of, but not like you weren't ranting and raving about A Few Good Men as the years have gone by.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I wasn't going like ballistic, but in the sense of every time I watched it, I enjoyed it much. But it's just like I'm not quoting it all the time. And,
sure.
But yeah.
Probably, it's one of those, let me go around before I give a take on that. Melanie, what's your relationship with A Few Good Men?
I don't remember if I ever saw it in the movies
movie
or not. I can't remember if I ever saw it in the movies or not, but I've just always been aware of it, and I've watched it whenever it's come on TV. I can't believe I don't own it on DVD because it is kind of a classic.
Yep.
And always liked it. I mean, the cast in here is incredible.
No doubt. I mean, it is kind of nutty. So you don't own it, Jay. You don't own it?
No.
Okay. So our esteemed guest, Francis Maxwell. Francis, what's your deal with this movie? What's your history with this movie?
As I said, kind of off camera before we came on, I was actually first introduced to the play, so I didn't see it when it came out. My dad used to have the VHS tape, and I was a little too young because it was 15 back in the UK was the rating, and I used to wait to try to watch it, and then I forgot all about it. And then when I came to the US, I kind of got into reading plays, and I just pulled this out because it was on my shelf. But that is one of the copies of it. Yeah, so the play fascinated me. The dialogue, Aaron Sorkin's dialogue just sings. And then when I watched the film, it was actually in the late 2000s, I think I first watched it, and was kind of going through a phase of watching all, I would say, glory era Tom Cruise films, from Jerry Maguire to A Few Good Men, Rain Man, and I fell in love with it. And I would say that I watch it at least once a year. And if it comes on, if I'm skipping through live TV, I'll definitely land on it. I think it's one of my top 5 favorites, I would say, films of all time. Yeah. Excellent.
All right, so wait a minute. I want to clear something up. Did you see the play? You saw the play?
No, I read it.
Oh, you read the play. Okay, just making sure.
I never saw it performed. I would love to, but I was actually just through reading plays, and I think I read the play when I had first kind of heard of Aaron Sorkin's work, and I don't think I had saw the movie first, and I just kind of heard about his dialogue, and I wanted to read it before I actually saw it on screen in a weird twist of that. And then when I read it, the play's very different, by the way, too. Don't want to talk too much about the play, but it is different in terms of a lot of thematic choices and the way that they present specifically Colonel Jessup, as I'm sure we'll get to, is very different in the play, and they made better choices, in my opinion, in the film.
Sure. Okay. Just curious about that, because it is so... I'm wondering what it looks like, but now you're telling me it's a little different. Obviously, this is very dialogue-driven, but the fact, all the nuances of the movie come through the dialogue and the acting, of course, but doesn't depend on where it is. I mean, we see a lot of shots of DC, but it doesn't matter where it is, but certainly you're kind of enraptured by the dialogue, and the dialogue going from regular speak to super legal speak, but it's never a level of legal speak that we can't understand what they're talking about. It's just that really intriguing legal speak. So, all right, enough of that. So, look, my situation with this, I'm sure I saw this in the theater, came out in, I think, 92. I'm almost guaranteeing I saw it. I went through a Jack Nicholson phase, probably just because of Batman. Was not long after that. And this, by the way, Jessup is kind of just a rehashed Batman or Joker. Am I wrong here?
Point. That's a good point.
Really a shade off of the Joker, except with, never rub out another man's rhubarb. But he still has really fun, like really catchy things to say.
And he's a huge ego.
Giant ego, untouchable. I'm smarter than everybody in the room kind of situation, right? So I never owned it. I did see it in the movies. I'm sure I rented it once and then have not seen it since 2023 because I felt I saw it. It was really good. It's not like super entertaining. I used to watch JFK a lot. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I think I just like the conspiracy side of it, and then you realize, wait, conspiracy theorists are nuts. So this is kind of JFK, but a little more legit, right? A little more legal stuff. So, all right, well, let's get into the movie now. We've gone through our history. Let's go through the IMDb breakdown. So I'm going to go to IMDb. We're going to say see how IMDb can kind of break down this movie in one sentence. So here we go. A Few Good Men came out in 1992. Rated R, running time 2 hours and 18 minutes. Just if you look at the poster on this, Tom Cruise is top billing over Jack Nicholson.
It was also on the credits at the end. The end credits.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy. Anyway, so here it is. Military lawyer Lieutenant Daniel Caffey defends Marines accused of murder. They contend they were acting under orders. Directed by Rob Reiner. Written by Aaron Sorkin. Starring Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson, Demi Moore, Kevin Bacon, Kiefer Sutherland, Kevin Pollak, oh my God, J.T. Walsh, James Marshall, Christopher Guest. Christopher Guest is in this. J.A. Preston, Matt Craven, Noah Wyle, a young babyface Noah Wyle, Cuba Gooding Jr. Everybody's in this movie. It is a murderer's row of people that have yet to be and people that are. So obviously we're dealing with some royalty in this film. So let's get at it. So everybody, let's start with an opening question. Do you want Colonel Jessup in charge of your safety?
Depends on if I'm a military person or if I'm a civilian. If I'm a civilian, yes. If I'm a military person, no.
Wow.
And what do you guys think? I don't know. How do you feel about him being... Forget about Gitmo. What if he were in charge of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or a higher up in the Pentagon? How do we feel about that?
He's probably good at the military aspect. Like, meaning... So somebody like that has the right brain for those specifics. Where he comes up short is humans that are in person, and close to you.
Yeah.
So it's like regular people or people that aren't within that thing. So, but here's the thing though. I think you could also probably find somebody that has that type of brain, but can actually also be a human.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm sure somebody has the smarts to do the military aspect without being a complete monster.
Okay, right. Francis.
I think that that's exactly what in Sorkin's writing he wants to ask that question, right?
Yep.
He's posed this basically an allegory, in my opinion, an allegory for people in positions of power. It's a tale as old as time, right? It's like if they are believing so much so in their stance, and in this example, he's overseeing the safety of the country. I think that why I love it so much is as I talk about in politics quite a lot is overreach. And when you have somebody who believes so much so that they're doing the right thing for the protection of others, it actually leads them down a very dark path. If there's kind of an unchecked sort of form of balance right there. And he speaks about it in a very powerful speech in the film where he's basically insulting Demi Moore. And he's talking about how she outranks Caffey, and unless there's a gal elected president, he basically says he can do what he wants. He's talking in that example very grotesque means about who can give him in his words, a blowjob or not. And I think, sorry if we can say words like that on this. In the movie, that's what he's talking about in that example. And I think to me, he wants to give up this idea that you need him, and without him, everything's in jeopardy. But that's where people like that in all walks of life can really walk that fine line before they start to do things that are just, as Jay said, inhumane in order to preserve their idea of what we need as people, And I think that the character of Jessup, you can put that same guy in a police role, you can put that same guy in politics, you can put that same guy in a CEO position, and they can assume that what they're doing is for the protection of everyone. But as I said, it can flip both ways, and that's why I think he's such an intriguing villain, because he's so convincing in what he says. He's in those famous speeches. You kind of believe him. You're like, oh, well, maybe I do need you.
Yep. See, I agree. He has
complex.
100%, 100%, because he is in charge of the lives of all of the people on that base. People, like you said, 4,000 people across the fence want me dead at any moment, and I'm putting myself in danger because of you all. And then the question becomes, for people, and again, I'm not military, so I hope I don't offend anybody. I have nothing but respect for the military. Don't get me wrong. I'm just going to say, in terms of the movie and the character, we don't want Marines that will think for themselves. We need Marines that are going to do exactly what we tell them to do when we tell them to do it. And that's the seed of his God complex, right? I have been put in this position because I get people to do what I tell them to do, because that's their job. We're all just in here doing our job. And at the end of the day, how do you fault somebody, particularly the private, and what's the rank of the other one?
Oh, Lance Corporal.
Lance Corporal, right? So they were just doing their job, like they have always been told to do. But the question then becomes, and I think Caffey brings it up, is like, well, we're not talking about refusing to storm the hill. We're not talking about refusing to pull the trigger. We're talking about refusing to abuse somebody because they're not in line. Mm-hmm. I just asked, so I can see where that's coming from. Well, that's a gray area, because you do need soldiers who don't question. That's the point. They're not supposed to question. They're just supposed to do. But then when you have a maniac in charge, how does it go south from there? Which is really kind of interesting. All right, so Francis, tell me, can you encapsulate why, because you've seen it probably more than we have. Can you give me a 2-sentence rundown, just for the people that maybe haven't seen the movie? What is the problem at Guantanamo Bay, and why do we bring in Tom Cruise, Lieutenant Caffey?
Well, essentially, there's a weakling Marine, that's that's subpar, as Jessup says, and he is trying to get transferred off the base, and he's calling to attention the treatment of him on the base. And 2 Marines are advised by, without the spoilers here, by higher powers to give him a code red, which is a term for train him rather harshly. And it goes south, and he ends up dead at the hands of these 2 Marines. So in walks the young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Daniel Caffey to take on the case to to defend these 2 Marines. Only Daniel Caffey's never seen the inside of a courtroom, so the assumption is that it's going to be plead. He's going to win his steak knives, as he talks about, and it's going to be passed on. But it's somewhere deep in that psyche of Daniel Caffey is a man who wants to be a good lawyer, and that's what we follow, is him taking on the case and taking it serious.
Okay. So just so we know, because we kind of jumped into, because it's such an interesting thing about this guy Caffey, but we need a little bit of context, and sometimes we skip over that. So as you saw more than us, you can probably encapsulate that a little bit better. So I guess what we ought to get at here is let's talk about Tom Cruise. How do we feel about Tom Cruise in this movie? Now, I have vowed to Jason that I will not rent any more Tom Cruise movies so that he doesn't get any more of my money. Luckily, this was on Freebie or Tubi or whatever, so I just had to pay the advertisers. But so where do we stand on young, overconfident Tom Cruise compared to kind of loose cannon, weirdo Scientology Tom Cruise? Like, how do you feel about him now compared to how you felt about him when you first saw the movie? Like, I'll tell you what, he rubbed me the wrong way. He really, his whole smarmy thing, I've been over for a while. It was cute back in the day, and I don't think it's cute anymore. It's actually kind of, I liked him in Minority Report. I didn't mind him so much because he wasn't doing that anymore. He actually let himself be vulnerable. I think Tom Cruise is best when he allows himself to look stupid. He's great in Jerry Maguire because he allows himself to be beaten, and he's not good in movies where he comes across as the best. I'm sorry. That's my take. Anybody, how do we feel about Tom Cruise in this movie? Melanie has raised her hand. Go.
Okay, so I think there's a time and place where everybody needs to realize the difference between an actor that's there to entertain you and an actor's personal life. Because
Sure.
I mean, like, even like when we were talking about, we were watching The Green Mile. We were talking about The Green Mile, and this lady saw the bad guy, you know, that used to rape what's his face in the movie in an elevator holding his baby, and she freaked out. That actor, and she freaked out while he was in the elevator and almost woke up his baby, and he had to try to calm her down so he so they could realize that, like, you know, I'm not this person. I'm an actor. You know, like, it's just this guy is there to entertain you. You have to appreciate how much of a good actor he is. He's an amazing actor. So whatever the hell he decides to do in his own personal life, I could care less. I just care about how good the movie is. If I want to go see a movie, I want the movie to be good. I want him to be good in it. I don't care what he does in his own life. It's not going to make me think any different of him, really, because I just don't really care about that. It doesn't involve me in any way what his personal religious beliefs are and what the hell he does with his life.
Pseudo-cultish.
You know what I mean?
Pseudo-cultish religious belief.
Yeah, I know that. I know, but it's just like, I don't care because
That's cool.
I'm nowhere near it. It doesn't involve me in any way. Let him have his own weird thing. As long as he acts good in a movie that I'm paying to go see, that's all I care about.
All right, let me flip it a tad then.
Yeah.
Let's do it this way. Young Tom Cruise was kind of always Tom Cruise. It's the same reason, and I love Ryan Reynolds. I'm a little sick of Ryan Reynolds because he's always Ryan Reynolds.
Okay.
He's always Ryan Reynolds. He can't do anything
like the same
but.
type
Now,
of
is it
character, you mean?
Is it entertaining? 100%. Can I do it? Fuck no, I can't do that. Otherwise, I'd be a millionaire like Ryan Reynolds. However, nor am I as handsome or chiseled or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, like, I get a little sick of it. And I just want him to do something different. Like, I want to see him in Amityville. I want to see him do that Amityville thing, to see him do something.
You gotta watch it. We gotta do that because
I'm gonna watch it. But
he's so good in it.
I'm sure he is. The movie, I'm sure, stinks. But anyhow,
he's amazing.
But that's where I am with Tom. I was kind of getting sick of him being that Tom. Like, I hate him I hate Top Gun. So just to see more Top Gun, I don't want to see that.
Right.
I'm done. So I guess it reminded me too much of Top Gun. Like, I don't care that you don't take this seriously. You probably should. However, the character arc in this movie is he eventually does take his job seriously without having to lose his, quote, wingman to whatever, like he did in Top Gun. So I don't know. Anybody else take on Tom Cruise, Francis J?
Francis.
I think that what you're saying, I can understand. I think that the way that me and my friend talk about this quite a lot. That's why the film we're obsessed with it. Me and my Aussie mate. We talk about that period of time for Tom Cruise. I actually disagree where I don't think that he's Tom Cruise in this film. Not that I think he's Tom Cruise in Jerry Maguire or Tom Cruise in that period of time in Rain Man. I think when Tom Cruise became the action star, that's where you're starting to see what you talk about in terms of the Mission Impossible. And the first Mission Impossible was actually a fantastic film. It wasn't an action film. It was a very intriguing kind of thriller with a lot of well thought out plot points in it, and it started to become the franchise. So when Tom Cruise shifted, and there's theories out there where they talk about where he got snubbed for Academy Awards and all these things, and he just thought, I'm going to accept the big bucks. I'm going to go the Bruce Willis route, because he essentially becomes that same figure of the Arnold Schwarzenegger, kind of Sylvester Stallone, where you're just playing your action man role, and that's not a problem, right? Those films they have an audience. But where I really enjoyed Tom Cruise was those early films of Jerry Maguire, Rain Man, and especially A Few Good Men. If you look at his appearance in A Few Good Men, teeth jaggedy, eyebrows not plucked. He's got his eye, like, he looks like a child, and I think you have to have that character to go up against Colonel Jessup, because Jack Nicholson's character in it is so overpowering, so assured of himself, that if you don't have that smarmy, overconfident, Demi Moore has a perfect line in it. I think she calls him Persian Bazaar, like this kind of silver spoon type of character that's just coasting on his dad's reputation. It's essential for the movie that he is that person, and I don't think he plays Tom Cruise in it. I think he plays a Harvard grad who you want to punch in the face most of the time, but he's going to convince you that he's worth taking serious outside of all that. And I think that at some point in his career as an actor, he chose to start doing films that weren't essentially going to serve his sometimes his performances. I do think there are still exceptions in there. Magnolia, I really enjoyed. I actually think in the latest Top Gun, I thought he did do some good acting. And I think Top Gun is still another one. The first film was in there. Maybe that was the start of that arc in terms of the action films. But I think that you look at somebody like Tom Cruise in that era, and you look at like a Timothy Chalamet of modern day era.
Sure.
And I think that Chalamet's been advised, I've heard stories being advised by DiCaprio of being like, just be selective in your films, like don't, because if you start to become that version, then it's just going to be your Chalamet in all these films. You're not the characters who you are, you're not the person that people are coming to see you. And I look at Tom Cruise, I'm like, that's Daniel Caffey. It's not Tom Cruise. Where if I'm watching Mission Impossible 12, I'm like, that's Tom Cruise.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad I brought it up because it kind of sussed out some of the detail work that he does in the movie. Because so again, a lot of things that I say, I just throw it against the wall, see how people are going to react, right? So while I don't like Tom Cruise that much, I will definitely say he's a good actor. However, going to Francis's point, I would like to say that yes, you need to have Tom Cruise act the way that he does. It's legit. It's more not realistic, but it drives the story more because we need to have Jessup look at this kid as a snot-nosed pissant, like who does not respect me, and I am Colonel Jessup, and he has Caffey has the stones, or at least I don't care who you are. You're just a person to me because I don't even take the military that seriously, which is going to go up Nicholson's ass even further because he doesn't care that he's military. So, and you're right, it is somebody that you want to punch in the face. And if they got somebody that they didn't want to punch in the face because of the arrogance, but also tooled with that overconfidence, and again, that's an overcompensating confidence because he's not a confident person. That's how you get Jessup to say what he does at the end. Otherwise, you don't get him to say that because he's so unlikable to somebody like Jessup. He's likable to what's his name? I can't remember. Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
I was going to say they laid the groundwork in Cuba when like Nicholson was saying, Jessup, fine. Jessup was saying, in that, and he was making fun of his white uniform. Using a gay slur and obviously the culture, everything's tribal. Like even Kiefer Sutherland's character was saying, "Oh yeah, we love you guys. You give us a ride every time we go somewhere." You know what I mean? Like, so it's all like we're better than you.
Yep.
You're just the B team. Like everything's but see there, that keeps everything in that like I can do no wrong. I can do absolutely no wrong, and it's not going to be a big deal if I admit that I did something that's like, so like by the time he's in court later and gets him to admit that he ordered the code red, he's full-fledged angry at Tom Cruise, spitting out fire at him, and then all of a sudden it's like, like I'm going to prove it right now, What do you think of that, bitch? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what do you mean I'm getting arrested? Because, besides the president of the United States, according to him, no one's bigger. You can't touch me. I am the best. You know what I mean? So, like, and by the time, so when he's asking him the questions, and I know I'm going to the end, but it doesn't matter. It's like, if you haven't seen the movie by now, you've heard the lines, you can't handle the truth and all that stuff. So, deal with it. But the fact is, like I said, why wouldn't he admit it? That he ordered the code red because, nothing's happened to me yet. I have risen through the ranks. He's even insulting his, the second in command, the guy that actually wants to do the right thing by shipping Santiago off the base. And he's like, well, I outrank you. Yeah. I rose. We went to the academy together. I rose faster. That must eat you up. So all those things. Right. It's like there's your God complex that Melanie said.
I think Tom Cruise kind of like was intimidated by him at first and kind of probably did respect him a lot because especially the way he was talking to Demi Moore when like she wanted to ask questions and he was like, sit down, be quiet, blah, blah, blah. He didn't like, he kind of just wanted to get out there until he asked him for the transfer paperwork. And when he saw the way he said, ask me nicely and all this, the way Tom Cruise was looking at him at that time, you could tell that he thought, this guy's a real narcissist. and he would, and he is a liar, and he definitely, I think it's that exactly. I think like Jack Nicholson literally had him exactly where he wanted him until he literally said that to him, and the way he looked at him was like, okay, I'm completely looking at him in a completely different way now. And that's when, you know what I mean? Like, it was just, I think that was kind of the breaking point. He couldn't keep his mouth closed because he had such a big God complex. And if he just shut up, maybe he probably, I don't know, maybe things wouldn't have went the way they did. But he just had to keep going and make somebody basically get down on their hands and knees and ask him nicely.
One other thing on that, I do love Tom Cruise's face when he admits it, because his face just instantly becomes like, holy shit. Did anybody else hear that?
Yeah.
It's really brilliant the way he does it. So,
So that's really quick on that. That's in the play. He has him repeat it like 3 times, which makes me realize that this is a moment that he must have chose. Yeah, in the play, he's like, Colonel Jessup, did you order the corvette? Yeah, and it doesn't say in the line, "You're goddamn right, I did." Brilliant choice, I imagine, by Nicholson to just let it out that way, is because he wants to say it, right? He eats breakfast from 3,000 Cubans who want to kill him. You know, he wants to say this. So I was just so fascinated when I saw it in the film after reading the play that's it. The film, like the moment's done. You don't need the added like 2 or 3 lines, and then but it's funny how it can change just by the way an actor gives that line. You know, that one admission is all you needed in the sheer kind of gall that he admits it into, right? Like, you're goddamn right, I did. You know, like,
how great
you're
is
going to
the
tell
fact
me this
that,
isn't the right thing.
It's hard with
also,
delay here. I got.
Sorry.
How great is the fact that they had Tom Cruise do an impression of Jack Nicholson in the middle? Like, it was just so great.
I remember that from '92. I'm like, oh my god,
you know, like,
he just did the Joker.
I got that in the trivia. That was not in the script. Tom Cruise did that on his own, and both Kevin Pollak and Demi Moore were like, their expressions were real because they were just cracking up because that wasn't in the script.
Yeah.
But back at the talking about choices at the end there, again, we've established that Nicholson says to Cruise, you know, sir, and I do outrank you. Yeah. And then the judge says, I outrank you.
And I've earned it, yeah.
And I've earned it as well. And it kind of puts him in his place, because eventually when he does admit to it, and then Cruise says some legal jargon, something like, in accordance to Section 38A, blah, blah, blah. A lot of legal stuff in this movie that I don't understand, but it felt like I did understand it.
Right.
It doesn't go way over my head. Look, I've been in a court for like, you know, I got divorced, and a lot of things my lawyer would say, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're using language I don't get. But I mean, they were using language that I at least thought I understood. And like, he says that, and then you see Nicholson's looking around, and then the judge starts to say, you know, he puts him under arrest, and you see Kevin Bacon. Forgot about Kevin Bacon, folks. Kevin Bacon is in this. He's in the back, out of focus, reading him his rights, which I think is the greatest thing, because they didn't put him in focus, they put him out of focus with the words coming through. And it's just another person. They are doing their job. They have been instructed that when this happens and the judge says this, you must arrest this man, even though he outranks you. Everybody's doing their job. And it's just interesting to see that all play out in terms of that dynamic. Who's outranking who in each situation, depending on what you say. Like, that's crazy. And how do you write that? Like, that's so complicated. And I think it's super. Absolutely,
and in that moment,
super.
The moment where it kind of pivots is like the entire movie, Tom Cruise doesn't understand the protocol, right? He's always standing and somebody doesn't dismiss him. Like, Demi Moore brings it up. He's always getting called sir by Dawson and Downey, and like, he says, if you say sir, I look for my dad. Like, he doesn't follow the rules. But the moment that he finally gets it is when Jessup excuses himself from the bench. And even though he does outrank Caffey in that moment, he's still a witness, therefore he's under his jurisdiction. So he walks away, and Caffey says, I didn't dismiss you. And that's when he goes back. And at that moment, that's when it starts to change for Jessup. He realizes his power's gone now. Like, he doesn't have the ability to tell a kind of a Marine to shut up. I'm in charge here. He's now in his world. And I think that's a really great place for the writing to start to change in a little bit, where he starts to panic, and that's how he ends up catching him.
Is that where he starts to drink and he's shaking? Is it
that's
after
when,
that?
That's when Caffey starts to shake, because he's like, I just told a colonel I didn't dismiss you, So you can see that adolescence, and that's where I would say that Tom Cruise is at his best in those moments, because he's saying the words that a really bombastic lawyer would say, but his actions don't follow up. He can barely keep himself composed, and that just shows a little bit of nuance in his character that I like.
I just wanted to add that obviously we all know that, like, not only did he want to admit it because he has such a big ego, and that's what they were hoping for, but he has to admit it because he literally had just explained to everybody that literally nobody in there would ever. He has so much control over literally everything that everybody does that nobody's ever going to do anything that he's not telling them to do. So I mean, no matter what, he kind of talked his way right off that ledge, because like he said, like, okay, well, if you were to tell everybody not to touch him, and everybody does, like you said, exactly what you say, and they're not going to do anything that you say not to say, then why was his life in grave danger? Why would he need to be shipped off anywhere? So it's like, no matter what, like he in some way had to admit it, because he just, not only because of his ego, but he had just had to prove to everybody that I'm in control of literally everything everybody does. No one's going to walk or blink or do anything without me telling them to do it first. So I think he had kind of nowhere to go, and he just couldn't wait to say it. But it's so funny to me that, like, not only did he not think that he did anything wrong, that he couldn't believe that he was being arrested. He was like, "You're arresting me for a crime," but also the dumb other, what the heck was his name? The other guy that was being accused.
The blonde hair.
Downey.
Yeah, it's kind of dumb.
Yeah, Downey. Yeah.
He was like, what do you mean? Like, we didn't do anything. We were talking. Do you not understand that you just killed somebody, you moron? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, he was but again, you got that character. I hear where you're coming from, and that's what who's the other guy? Lieutenant Lance Corporal.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
And he had to explain it.
He's looking at him like a puppy dog.
Yes.
Because he is a man who joined the Corps because he might not have a lot of smarts, and he probably isn't good in school, but he knows he can follow orders, and the Marine Corps gives him an identity. It gives him something to work for. It gives him something to strive for, a code. He finally has a code. Maybe he's from some bumble-neck town in the middle of nowhere where everybody just does whatever they want, and he wants to go in a place that's a little more ordered. And he wants to follow. He wants to follow orders.
Yeah, he wants.
And when you follow orders, then you're doing your job. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, he does not make that connection because he has been trained to not make that connection, and that's the gray area. Yeah. Do you want of the way that it's written? Do you want soldiers to not have a moral gray area? That what I'm doing right now is not okay. It doesn't matter that I'm under orders. I really shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. Do you want to make people like that? I'm not anti-military. I'm just saying that's what the writers are saying at this juncture, and they're doing it well.
But that's a good point you bring up, Chris. I know you mentioned it earlier, and I'm a little bit out there unapologetic in my political opinion. So I've covered some things in the past, specifically at Fort Hood, a military base, where some issues have went on with assault on bases and people following orders that were essentially given from higher up, right? And I think that there is a very ambiguous conversation about following orders by those in positions of power, because the military essentially governs themselves. When crimes happen on military bases, very rarely does it go outside the kind of reach of those who are in positions of power. And there is great honor in serving, of course, because you're protecting the country, and there's a lot of support that comes with that. And I think that even though Aaron Sorkin doesn't say he's political in all his interviews, I think he is being political in terms of what can happen when somebody knows how that point of view in this world, how much leeway you're given.
Sure.
Because Jessup's character, he talks about how much the country needs him, and he understands that. And I think that without that kind of imperialistic point of view of like, I'm protecting the country, yes, but I'm also going to do it my way because I'm a U.S. colonel and whatever I say goes. I think that's what Sorkin's trying to say, is that if we simply say, okay, these soldiers are protecting our well-being, we're not in the military, so do we really have a point of view on that? Like, that's where it starts, I think, can become a little bit of a kind of cop-out almost for those people like Jessup's in the world, because it's like, well, I'm going to do what I want because I'm sacrificing myself anyway. But then it becomes ambiguous, right? And that's the question that I like to pose, is because I have family friends who are in the military and served, and I honor that sacrifice, but I also think that it shouldn't come without reprieve if you're overstepping, and severely overstepping.
Yeah, I am by no means defending anybody that oversteps. I think
absolutely not. I was just saying that's what I think he does in posing that question.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm trying to. I don't want to think I'm being wishy-washy, but I guess what I think what we got to focus on here is the phrase. The ends justify the means. Like the ends do justify the means, but not all the time. Like you can't say that about everything. Like you got to be really, really, really picky about when you use that as your mantra, and that is Jessup's what he's saying. Well, the ends justify the means. We got rid of a lousy soldier. We don't have to worry about him anymore, and the country is better for it, right? And I don't know. It's still somebody's life. Maybe you should have just said, hey, you're a shitty Marine. Just go home. You just don't be here. You can't be a Marine anymore. Sorry. I know you want to, but
who's ever told him he was wrong?
Nobody.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you've got that going for you, then why would you ever assume you are?
Well, when you're in Jessup's position, everybody says yes to you because they have to.
Yeah.
So exactly.
Why would you ever think you're wrong?
Never.
Because everybody around you says yes, sir.
They could have just transferred him somewhere else.
No, but that's because we're all humans. We all agree with you, Melanie, because we're human.
But then again, to the point of defending Jessup, which I just think I like to take that position to see, is that he makes a point in saying that if we started, like he has that brilliant first line introduced to him, where he's like, oh, why don't we get the president on the phone and say that we're just surrendering our position in Cuba? There's a point to be made in him saying that if we take the quote-unquote easy route, like take away the it's sad to say, but take away the human aspect of it, right, where you're just looking at kind of standards. If you're going to say that if anybody falls short, then they're gone, then how do you know that doesn't create a domino effect where everybody lets a standard slip, and then all of a sudden things start to change? I obviously don't agree that means that somebody should be trained as a code red, but that's where his stance is, right? Which makes it why it's one of my favorite films. You can sit and talk about this all day, where Jessup becomes not one of the most likable antagonists, but an understandable one to a certain extent in what his job is. But he's just taken that level of authoritarian point of view, which happens to people in power, and has just ran with it to the point where there's no boundary anymore. It's whatever it takes to follow that protocol.
You know who I like in this movie a lot is Noah Wyle. So Noah Wyle comes in and they put him on. So he's on the base and he's just adorable, like, cute as a button, 18-year-old Noah Wyle, or however old he was, like probably one of the first movies. But anyway, so they put him on. He's on the base and he drives Kathy around and all them to the meetings with Jessup, and eventually they put him on the stand as a witness about Code Reds, and he says, did you screw up once? And he said, yeah. And what did they do? What did they say? Everybody got to punch me in the arm for 5 minutes? Yeah. Right? So no one ordered them to do that. That's just what you did. It's almost like the soap party in Full Metal Jacket. Right. You know what I mean? They took it upon themselves so that I don't screw up anymore. And he says, as a result, I became a better Marine. And, you can almost agree with that. It's like, all right. It's almost a thing like, if we get in trouble, if you screw up, everybody's got to do 100 push-ups. So we're going to make sure you don't screw up. And we're going to punch you in the arm for 5 minutes. And guess what's going to happen? You're not going to screw up anymore. And that's kind of a tough love thing. Yeah. But I submit, I'm not saying I agree. I'm just saying I submit, though, that Noah Wyle already could have been a good Marine. He's already got the inner workings of being somebody that can learn from his mistakes, whereas Santiago maybe wasn't that person. And it doesn't matter what code red you threw on him. Maybe he had already received 4 or 5 and he just wasn't learning. So again, it goes to that standard. I think Noah Wyle is the good Santiago. The Santiago where all this tough stuff that happens works for. But it doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for 100% of everybody.
Think about this.
And I just like he's the one that made it. But
what about the fact that all those symptoms that the doctor kind of looked at, like it got brought to his attention that all these things could cause that same problem, like the fatigue, the shortness of breath, but when it came time to admit it in court, he was like, no, it's what I said. He had a clean bill of health because he's also following a certain line that he wants to. So Santiago, I mean, was never probably physically fit to be there, but because everybody's towing this one line of what they need to follow. Like, no, you can't say that he's sick. He's just weak. It's like this weird thing. And then when it was presented to him, you saw it dawn on him that, wow, that really could be it. But hold on, I have to maintain the loyal Marine guy. You know what I mean? So I'm not. No, I'm going to say it's.
He could never admit it. He would get in trouble. He'd be responsible for part of his death.
Right.
Even though he knows it internally.
And also, Jack Nicholson didn't think that. Yeah, and he didn't. Jack Nicholson honestly did not defending him again, but like Chris says, I'm not defending him, but he didn't know he was going to get killed. He's like, no, he's not getting a transfer. His exact words were, "We're going to train him."
Yep.
So he's trying to teach him a lesson. He's going to train him. He said, "We're going to train him." He never thought he was going to die. He wasn't trying to kill him. There's a
little kind of like trivia but secret and there's a scene that they didn't use in the film where Nicholson's character Jessup talks with the doctor and threatens him and says that he's going to be he's looking to his stars rising, as they talk about, and he might need a chief of medicine. And he uses that, and he uses exactly what you just said, Melanie, where he said, wouldn't that be, if you had noticed before that he had a defect in his heart and you didn't catch it, wouldn't that be on you? And the doctor starts to panic. So he uses that, which is so great that you don't need that in the film. Like, it's a scene that maybe wouldn't be out of place, but you don't need it because you already get that Jessup's probably working all these angles anyway, right? You don't need to see him directly threaten the doctor to know that the doctor is essentially trying to cover his tracks as well, because everyone's following Jessup.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's pretty cool.
I would like to say, again, as I am a DC geek, they would catch, every now and then they'd intercut, this is kind of off the track a little bit, but they would intercut just very quick, like the Marine Corps Memorial, just for a second, Washington Monument for no reason, Thomas Jefferson Memorial for no, and just go back to the courtroom. I thought that was interesting because if you've been around the monuments, they're obviously they're awesome. They're supposed to show this quiet strength in the nation, honoring these people, the ex-presidents and the Marine Corps and all that stuff. And then they'll do a scene where they're talking about how it's kind of crumbly at the bottom because people are in charge. So it's interesting how they show these very honorific cuts. It's not like they have, the Iwo Jima Memorial with spray paint on it saying lies. First of all, you can't do that, but it's guarded. But the fact of the matter is, like, he doesn't paint that. Reiner isn't painting. He's letting us think about what is actually going on. Francis, something you talked about, like that they govern themselves. They have carte blanche for themselves. So what we see from the outside is different than what's going on the inside. We visit these memorials and we see all these honorific things, but we're not seeing everything. Should we? I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't see everything. But it's kind of interesting how he threw those in. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I actually only caught this in more of the recent watches. I think it was a couple of years ago. But the opening scene, not the scene where they show the brief glimpse of the violence that happens to Santiago, But the opening scene of all the soldiers in line following the procedure of the marching band, essentially, and they're all drilled. Like everyone's gun comes down a second.
Yep.
That is so telling for the entire film.
Yep.
And
I
it's
thought
just
of
in
that
that
too.
one scene.
I thought
And
of that
that
too.
that wasn't the play. There's nothing. That's like fully right. I think I don't know if Sorkin wrote that into the screenplay. I think he did actually. I've read the screenplay as well. He brought that in, but I'm like watching that scene, and I'm like, this is the film. After you've seen it a few times, you're like, this is exactly what they're trying to say: is that everybody needs to be in order. If one person messes up in this entire line, then all of a sudden the beat's off and everybody's out of sync. So, an amazing job by the both like Sorkin and the director to encapsulate that in the first 5 minutes. It's kind of a breathtaking scene that I only appreciated more so recently.
Yeah, I thought of that too, because they're all just there is no emotion in any of their faces, and they shouldn't have any because they have a job to do, and if everybody does it right, and if anyone does something different, you're gonna notice. Yeah. And when I first saw it at a younger age, 1992, I'm like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all I thought, because what else are you gonna think when you're younger, right? Like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Sorry, that's interesting, and also this thing ends, and what do they end the movie with? Like a triumphant march, not like some justice has finally been served.
Right.
Santiago can rest because no. What the hell is happening? Like that's on purpose. Like none of this stuff's on accident. It's all there for a reason, and he's asking us to think about the reason. And I think Francis and Melanie and Jay, I think the reason that I like the movie so much and in this new viewing is because they don't have to spell everything out for me. They let us percolate. They let us think about it. They don't tell us what we should think. Like the movie lets you come to your own conclusions. And if we had other guests or if this were another podcast, you could absolutely come at it a different way, and you could make some points that way too. That to me is good writing. It's not forcing down my throat what I should feel at this moment. So, hey Jay, you back?
Yeah, that was. It said something about like storage. Okay. Like I said, I was never ready for this friggin' thing to act this way today. So like,
that's okay.
It was just this is all fly by the So, can you see me again better? Like, as far as the angle good?
We got you.
Okay.
But like earlier you were saying you only saw the top of my head or not seeing the top of my head.
No,
we got you. It's good.
All right.
So
it was funny. I couldn't even see Melanie for half the show. It was just a black screen. But
did you guys?
I know it's. They probably could. It's just this is all like but it's recording locally. It's recording on your end, so it's going to be shipped up to me after. So I lost part of that, but sorry for everybody.
We were just talking about the beginning and the end of the movie. Hey,
you missed it.
I know, right? We're talking about that shit in between, but we did the beginning and the end. That was all right.
Why don't we do TMI?
It's time for TMI with Melanie.
Listen to this. I am in the bathroom right before the movie starts. And I'm in the stall, and there's no toilet paper.
Mine are at home in a display case above my bed.
TMI, my friends.
TMI? Too much information.
Don't go there, but that's lame.
Now, here's Melanie with your timeless movie info.
All right, the budget was 30. It doesn't have an exact figure. It says 33 to 40 million, and the box office was 243.2 million.
Holy moly!
Yeah, they did good. First, let me just say that half the trivia on here was, and that whole Kevin Bacon thing. Kevin Bacon was in this movie with this person. He was in this movie with this one.
Oh, sure.
6 Degrees.
But there's just literally pretty much, I'm just going to say the cast and crew all work together at some point in some time in their lives.
Got it.
There was just too many of them. I'm not going to write them all down. All right. The original play was inspired by an actual code red at Guantanamo Bay. Lance Corporal David Cox and 9 other enlisted men tied up a fellow Marine and severely beat him for snitching to the Naval Criminal Investigation Service. Cox was acquitted and later honorably discharged in 1994. And then David Cox mysteriously vanished, and his bullet-riddled body was found 3 months later. His murder remains unsolved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yowza.
So he got off of it and then got killed, but nobody knows who did it. A recent college graduate, Aaron, is his name Sorkin? You say that?
Sorkin.
Yeah, Aaron Sorkin, yeah.
Was working as a bartender in New York on Broadway shows, and he wrote the entire play on cocktail napkins. He said that that's the good thing about working in a bar, you'll never run out of cocktail napkins.
Yeah. Valid.
Aunt Jenny is Rob Reiner's sister-in-law, Maude Winchester. According to Rob Reiner, Tom Cruise would always stay after rehearsals to work on performing his role. Kevin Bacon praised Kiefer for embracing the darkness of his character, and Sutherland praised Tom Cruise for inspiring him with his acting. An unnamed executive gave Aaron Sorkin a note. If Tom Cruise and Demi Moore aren't going to sleep with each other, why is Demi Moore a woman? He responded. He said, I said the obvious answer. Women have other purposes other than to sleep with Tom Cruise.
Nice.
Wow.
He said that incident was the worst experience as a screenwriter.
Wow.
Yeah, they kept trying to put it in for make them kiss each other, make them and he was like, no.
Who said that to him?
It says an unnamed executive. He wouldn't say.
Okay, yeah. So, like someone up at the top. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. All right. He said Jack Nicholson was paid $5 million for just 10 days of work, and he only appeared in a few scenes. Demi Moore reportedly agreed to negotiate her $3 million asking price down to $2 million because she was competing with Jodie Foster and Linda Hamilton for the role, and also because she did so badly. She didn't do badly, but the movies did very badly as far as The Butcher's Wife in 91, Mortal Thoughts in 91, and Nothing But Trouble in 91. So she was really needing something.
Whoa.
So she was, did anything she could with the role.
Ain't kidding.
Yeah. Well, I will say I know it's the dumbest freaking movie ever, but Nothing But Trouble still makes me crack up. I showed it to the kids. It's so stupid, but it's just, I don't know why. I love it. Okay. The word sir is used 164 times during the movie and an average of once every 50 seconds. That same year, Jack Nicholson and J.T. Walsh appeared in Hoffa 92 and became very good friends. When Nicholson won his third Oscar, he dedicated it to the memory of Walsh, who passed away months before the award. Rob Reiner also praised J.T. Walsh as a natural and understated actor. Reiner's goal is to have the whole cast be as good as J.T. Walsh is. Kevin Pollak's mother is in the crowd watching the trial. According to Pollak, she hit on Jack Nicholson.
Sure.
Rob Reiner, Rob Reiner released one scene, required another take, and he apologized to Jack Nicholson, who reportedly said, Rob, you don't understand. I love acting. We'll do this as many times as you want.
Wow.
Kevin Pollak said of Jack Nicholson that he is the party and nobody had more fun than him.
Wow. All right. Wow. Super. Sounds like a grand time, this movie. My God.
Yeah. Can I throw in something that I know of this trivia?
Yeah,
this isn't actually from the play. I know I'm probably boring you with the play references.
No.
My first acting teacher in Los Angeles was a fella by the name of Wolfgang Bodison, who is Lance Corporal Dawson in the film.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
That
cool.
Yeah, so Wolf still teaches at the Playhouse in LA. So they had a lot of trouble casting for Dawson. And Wolfgang was Rob Reiner's assistant. And Wolf tells this story during his classes where he says that Rob was having some time trying to figure this out, and he literally turned and said word for word, I just need somebody like Wolf. And he looked at Wolf and he goes, Wolf, do you act? And he's like, well, kind of your assistant right now. Production is what I wanted to go into. He's like, gave him the script. He's like, can you memorize this? Read it. And he read for it and he got it.
No,
nice.
Cool.
Yeah, and that was one of his first. I think he did like a short film before that. It was his big break. So shout out to Wolf for that. He's a great guy, and he will used to keep us after class and tell us stories about being on that set, which is cool.
That's awesome.
That's neat.
I'd heard that, but it had been so long since I'd heard the story that I was like, I was talking to Melanie actually a couple of weeks ago. I was like, something. He was in the hall, he's walking by, so it's all
exactly
conflated.
Right. Yeah.
But I forgot the details, so I'm glad you said that.
I just want to be walking down the street and somebody go, I need to shoot a movie with somebody like this guy, and it just hand me
Damn, huh?
Yeah.
That's the deal.
Why not just
Aaron Sorkin was in the bar. I saw him on the credits, and I was like, "Where the hell is he?"
Yeah,
So I had to go look him
Really?
up online. He, there's a part where Tom Cruise is just wallowing in his self-pity, and then they go to there's a guy talking on the side. Goes, "Hey, if you want to do some stupid lawsuit because a 90-year-old man misread a insurance paper, I'm going to bury you," and that's Aaron Sorkin talking right there.
He puts himself in movies. He does it. If you've seen The Social Network, he's the kind of hedge fund guy that's talking to Mark Zuckerberg's character in Andrew Garfield in trying to negotiate their first kind of advertising deal. So he'll do that when he's in films that he's wrote. I don't know if he does it in every one, but I actually missed it the first couple of times watching this until I, exactly like you said, Jay, I saw it in the credits and then I went back and noticed he was in the bar. So he'll pop up as a cameo.
That's so cool. I love it when the writers do cameos. There's so many people, like, Stephen King and Alfred Hitchcock were like famous ones for doing that. But then what's the guy that's in all the 80s that did all? Don't even tell me. Don't make fun of me for this. But the one that we always like, The Breakfast Club and all that. What the heck? What's his name?
John Hughes.
Oh,
thank you. Okay, so he did a lot of cameo type stuff too. And the guy that did the Terminator, he's always in he tries to put his voice in things.
Oh yeah, James Aaron. Yeah.
named
Alfred Hitchcock
him
was like the
Aaron.
originator, though.
Oh, yeah.
I think,
totally.
was inserting himself.
Oh, everything.
You guys want to do Final Judgment?
It's time now for Final Judgment. Are you ready to rubber stamp this bitch? Here's the Final Judgment.
Well, now it's time for Final Judgment. It's the time of the show where we talk about how well the movie holds up today. So it's no longer about opinion, but fact. Hell, it's about opinion. It's all a matter of opinion. No. All right, so, Francis, you were the one that actually thought about this film. So why don't you say how much whether it holds up today? I think we kind of already know.
Yeah, sorry, I think I gave it away by my kind of beaming of enjoyment talking about it. I still think it holds up very well today. Do I have to give a score on it? Because if I
no, just basically it does.
Whip out a 99%. No, I think it still holds up.
Yeah.
I don't know how well it would do if it was released in today's film market, but I still think it holds up.
Okay. I'm going to echo him. I absolutely think it holds up. I think it works well as a stage play. I think there's a lot of lessons you can learn from it. I think because they don't beat you over the head about what you should think about it, it holds up. I think the only way it doesn't is because this movie is coming on a tail end of so many legal movies that came out late 80s, early 90s. There was a spate of them, and TV shows. Like suddenly everybody had to know about what's going on in a courtroom. And I think there's a lot of them, from My Cousin Vinny to The Pelican Brief to The Client to there's so many legal movies. L.A. Law, The Firm, there's so many
bring back legal films, bring them back.
Yeah, I'm just saying and they're fine. I think it kind of ran its course, and nobody wants to see them as much anymore. But I think this one does a good job at it, obviously. So no, it holds up. Doesn't matter whether or not I think it's good. It's about whether it holds up, and absolutely it holds up, no doubt about it. Melanie,
I say definitely, yeah. It's extremely entertaining. The cast and crew in this is phenomenal. Huge people in this. Everybody's in this. Every time you turn around, there's somebody else in this that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he's in this. And then the lines from this movie obviously are amazing. Who doesn't know you can't handle the truth, I think anybody watching this movie for the very first time would just be, glued to the TV set. I think it's really good. Yeah. So,
yeah, the acting really, I think, sets everything. It's the story and the acting combined. It is so intriguing that it doesn't matter if you're coming from this modern era. Mm-hmm. It's still the issues that are at play, in this. So, the decency, whether you should follow orders to hurt someone, you know what I mean, that type of thing. I mean, those questions are questions that aren't going to go out of date, and they're prominent in this. So I really think that that would hold up with almost anyone. Yes, it's wordy, but like, you know what I mean? Like, and you know, you might get a couple of kids today that, you know, they just can't handle anything because they just like only like a 10-second blurb on TikTok, and that's all they can handle. But you know, Aaron Sorkin, I haven't watched like a lot of The West Wing. I've only seen a couple episodes. It is what it is. I liked what I saw, but I wasn't like, you know, lured in like very tightly. I was really into the Newsroom. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but it was amazing.
Great.
It was so good. So I highly recommend that. I imagine you can find it on HBO. It was an HBO show, so highly recommend that. He is awesome. Some alternative titles for this for Tom Cruise could have been something like A Few Bad Thetans, or perhaps Code Red on the Deep Blue Sea Orc. I was thinking, you know, maybe.
Oh my God.
A miscavige of justice.
I also don't think it looks dated because, one thing, everyone's wearing military uniforms half the time, and the other times the clothes are just so plain. Nothing really looks dated. And I was telling my husband when we were watching it, when Kiefer was walking down the hallway and he's got his little sunglasses on and his military uniform and the boots, I'm like, you know, he feels like a badass right now walking down the hall with that outfit. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. That's I think my only critique is of Kiefer Sutherland's character a little bit. I think he comes across a little bit as a caricature in it, just because he's like so, like he's like, I believe, he's like in the play they trimmed it down thankfully in the film, but in the play he says about 12 times how he believes just in God, the United States, and the Marines, and that's his go-to every time. You know, I would like to see a little bit of nuance in his character, but that's my minor critique, just to say that I don't just unapologetically love the film in that way, but I would change a few things about that, but still great.
You know, I didn't put in the trivia, but I read somewhere that he had a really hard time. You know, when he was driving them around, he had a hard time driving that wide truck. So I guess there was a part where there were some Marines that were on the sides, and he kind of hit a couple of them.
Wow.
I didn't write that down because I didn't know how true it was, but and I thought that was kind of funny. So, but yeah, I just thought I would add that.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I'd like to personally thank Francis Maxwell for joining us today. Francis, if you want to help everybody know how to find you and all that.
Yeah, I'm across all the socials. Francis M. Maxwell is the handle on Instagram, Twitter. I do some political content on the Meidastouch Network, which is easily found on YouTube. And hopefully look out for a couple of courtroom dramas coming out of me in the future. No surprise, just because of how much I love this world. So that's where my arena is. So hopefully we'll see.
All right,
fingers crossed. I hope that works out. That'd be great.
That's awesome. Well, I'd like to thank Steve Lavoie for our vocal imaging, even though nobody got to hear it today. It's not our fault. And our theme music is done by Draco and the Malfoys. And so once again, we'd like to thank you for joining us on the Film Crickets. And on the behalf of Melanie Howerton and Chris Martineau, I'd like to thank you once again. And until next time, movies may not age like fine wine, but we drink it anyway. Bye.
Film Crickets, chirping about movies.